Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and have chats with amazing humans. For this session, I have the pleasure in introducing Megan Bearce to the conversation. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. So as I always do, just a very brief introduction. This is one of the Podathon recordings. This is recording number 9, actually, episode number 9 that we're doing over 24 hours. So it's wonderful to have so many people from all over the world participating. Megan's on this call from America, and I'll let her introduce where she is, what she's doing in a second. But Megan and I, we have a mutual love of the travel industry, business travel in particular, where we've tried to do some work to bring to light this thing around travel well-being and the communities of travel well-being and so on. So we were introduced through mutual contacts, I recall, and we've stayed friends. We've stayed in touch. We check in with each other every now and again just to see how things are. And as good citizens of the planet and humans that we are, we've got empathy and compassion towards others. And you're going to hear that from Megan in her introduction and her story. So I'll pass it over to you. Lovely to see you. Thank you for joining me.
Yes, this is exciting. It's such a big undertaking and such an important mission. So thanks for having me. I'll just launch, I guess, into a brief overview. Like you said, I'm here in the States. I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so right in the middle of flyover country, as they refer to it. I've been in the mental health field since 2001 when I started my master's program, started seeing clients in 2002, so quite a bit. And it's been definitely a journey that I'm excited to share a little bit about. But prior to that, like if I think back, kind of what were we going to talk about today? It goes way back to even in junior high and high school, where people would refer to me as kind of the therapist in residence, the Dr. Ruth, the relationship expert. And I was always pretty introverted and quiet, but definitely an observer and, pointing out things that didn't make sense, kind of trusting my gut about people and relationships. And that just really propelled itself forward, even though I ended up being a CPA, an accountant, as my first career. But even in those places, I was a supervisor and a mentor, and people would joke that my office was the therapy office, and they'd come to talk to me not only about work situations, but personal situations. So from an early age, was interested in supporting people, empathetic ear, but then also, making others feel comfortable about talking about uncomfortable things. And so after 5 years of being miserable in a career, which is something I love helping clients with, whether it's through coaching or therapy, I went back to school, figured out what resonated with my personality and interests, and became a licensed therapist here in the States. And so I've been working with clients. Always had a passion of supporting women and girls. I describe myself as a recovering perfectionist, ING, so work in progress, not ever done, I don't think. So a lot of support around, super moms, overwhelmed women, high achiever, gifted girls, like whatever the labels are. There's a common theme about, guilt and shame about not doing everything perfectly all of the time, and what kind of expectations we put on ourselves and society puts on us, and just trying to help women navigate that. How can we turn that volume down of all the shoulds that we should be doing and do more of what we want to? And so I feel like, it's a classic case of I was doing the same thing. Like, you should be a CPA, you should have a job that you'll have forever, but not paying attention to how miserable I was. So that's definitely some experience and learning I can bring to my sessions with people. And then, of course, my training, a lot of it was in Los Angeles, because that's where I was initially licensed. And so I had the honor and privilege of working in community-based mental health, gang awareness, tattoo removal, a lot of looking at white privilege, systemic racism, how that impacts people and their mental health. And so try to really bring that forward to today, still in my work with clients. And then, of course, modern day, here we are, I'm in private practice, but then have the added piece of the travel well-being. And that came about, again, personal/professional, where my husband started traveling every week for work. And I had clients who were struggling with a spouse who was gone a lot for work, whether it was business travel or just long hours, the type of job that they had. And so really figuring out how to support clients around that ambiguous loss, that coming and going, the stress that actually was probably sometimes worse when the person came home. And then, that ambivalence about like, oh, I can't wait till you leave, but I'm really going to miss you when you're gone. And so that's, ultimately how you and I connected. Like, how do we support business travelers and road warriors and bring mental health into the conversation, not just expense reports and hotel stays. So that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. you've got so many things in there and so many
I have a
things
lot going on.
yeah, but you know, this is your story, right? This is what
Yeah,
you've done, and this is things that you should be proud, you know, you're proud of course, you know, the success that you've had in there. You did write a book as well around the whole
I
super
did.
commuter thing, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of a fun thing. I initially was
Mm,
just going to have a blog post. I was like, maybe this would be a good way for me to kind of build myself as a resource in our community, talk about kind of what we're doing, because we were totally winging it when we started, right?
mm,
We had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and like, how are we going to make this work? Um, and so when I sat down to write the first post, it was 10 pages long, which of course is way too long for a blog post. And
yeah,
so I'm like, maybe there's a book or something in here, or at least a longer article. And just started asking people on the internet, social media, LinkedIn, like, do you know somebody that does this or has done it? And, would they want to talk to me? And I had more people to interview than I had space for in the book.
yeah.
So it just kind of organically was, all these themes about what works, what doesn't work, resentment, the success stories, and then strategies for you as a couple and strategies for therapists who work with these couples. And it was really fun because there was in talking with other people and even with us, there's sometimes a lot of shame around it, right? Like, you shouldn't complain. You have a really great job. Um, why are you upset about this? And so a lot of people, when I would interview them, they'd say, I thought I was the only person that felt like this. So that to me felt probably like the most important thing that came out of it, that I was
Mm,
able to help give other people a voice and tell them that it's okay to ask for help, because this is really hard, or can be really hard.
yeah,
And so just trying to connect people and, start the conversation.
yeah.
And then it feels like the business community and the business travel in particular is really starting to listen. And you were a big part of that, which is super exciting. So,
I think our voices together creates
yeah,
this bigger awareness of it, and that's one of the reasons why, for anybody listening from the travel industry to this, you
yeah,
know, that's why we're trying to do it, because we want people to know that there are challenges, there are struggles that people go through, and the thing about your book, and it's not, this isn't just about your book, of course, but it does talk to the real people. You know, it really is about real people talking about their experiences,
hmm,
and the thing that's often forgotten in all of this is the family, is the people around
yes,
that person. And you
hmm,
know, and it's exactly the same sort of thought around mental health. When somebody's struggling with a mental illness, you know, everything's about helping that person, support that person, give that
right,
person the right pathway to recovery, which is great. But there's also a community of people around it, family members. And
right,
you know, from my personal experience, of course, that's what we saw when our daughter was struggling.
yeah,
And it's similar to the super commuter sort of concept in many ways, I guess.
hmm.
You sort of recognize that?
Oh, definitely. Because that
Yeah.
was what I really wanted to make sure I focused on in the book, was to give the spouses at home, the ones left behind, the children. So a
Mm,
lot of information I got for that was around when I was speaking to military couples,
mm,
because deployments have been happening for eons, right? So
yep.
how do those kids handle when mom or dad is gone for a year at a time, right?
Mm,
That's really hard. So they had such great input and insight into that.
mm,
And then I dedicated an entire chapter. It's called Mom Won't Be Home for Dinner, because there's a lot of women who are frequent business travelers, right?
mm,
So, how do you manage being not only a working mom, but a working mom who's on the road? And so, I had some really great conversations with women out there that were doing that as well. And then, just from a societal standpoint, like what it was like for, in a traditional heterosexual relationship, for the man to be at home,
yeah.
right? And I spoke to a couple from South Africa where he was the person that stayed home, and how that was just a huge issue, especially in their cultures. The way he described it is like that's not what was normal
Yeah.
where he was living. So, um,
Wow.
and even I interviewed a gay couple and their experience, and I just was so grateful to have such a cross section
Mm,
of career types, electrical people who fly to Alaska for months at a time, and
yeah.
which I think speaks to, like what you said, like mental health doesn't discriminate, right? It's everybody may
Yeah.
touch them in some respect at some point in their time. So,
Yeah, definitely. And that's the key, isn't it? It's recognizing that it can touch all of us. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter
yeah,
what we're doing. You know, this podathon is really about bringing together people from all over the world talking about mental health and
hmm,
their experiences. So there is a lot of commonality. You
yeah,
know, we're humans first. That's what we have to always remind ourselves, and you know, help support each other when we're struggling. And I think that's key. And obviously the work that you do is about exactly that. It's helping support people to talk about their
yeah,
challenges through the therapy work that you do. Have you seen a sort of an increase in the need for that at the moment? As that,
yes,
yeah. Okay.
yes.
Talk
Is it
to
kind of,
us about that.
yeah? I mean, again, some of that I think it's such a big complex issue when you
Mm,
get into like the access to healthcare too, especially
right,
here in the States. But I would say I'm definitely getting more people who are first timers to therapy,
right.
which I think speaks volumes, without a study, but the how intense it's gotten for people that they're finally going to do it, and just that, or is it because it's become more acceptable, right? So it's kind of a chicken and egg. So I've noticed that. So I feel like, in that respect, just if any way that I can, do psychoeducation, kind of ease them into what therapy really can be like. Obviously, it's different with every single therapist, but kind of demystify it. But then I also try to be a resource just out in the world, right? So sharing articles, tweets, all this sort of stuff to just kind of normalize the conversation. Like recently, I'm in a Facebook group for local parents, and a person posted anonymously that they were a stay-at-home dad looking for resources about how to be a good parent. And I don't know that you would have seen that 5, 10 years ago.
Mm,
And so I was able to, share one with the group, which is 6,000 people. So I think the more we kind of drop these little
mm,
normalcy sort of things and make access even easier. And I think too, I mean, the pandemic has been horrific on so many levels, but because telehealth right now is the only option for a lot of people,
right.
I think it's made it much more accessible. People in rural areas, people with kids, the ease in scheduling, like people don't have to drive during rush hour to come see me. So I feel like that has definitely brought the barrier down as well.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that's interesting, and you're right. We've been forced into this position, really, haven't
yeah.
we? Well, not really. We have been forced into the position because there is no alternative at the moment. You can't
Hmm.
do the long drives, the long commutes, or go and meet with people and everything else.
Hmm.
Have you found the whole pandemic within your family community? Because obviously your husband's role changed as well because he couldn't
Yeah.
do the commute.
So it's good, right? No
Yeah,
drama right now, but
no,
yes, so that is something that I definitely, was doing talks about as well, because and like at home, because for 10 almost 10 years, it was 10 years in November, he
wow,
would leave every Monday and come back usually Friday, sometimes on Thursday. And March 12th, the needle got ripped off the record player and he was home. He was home with us every day until the end of June. He flew back to New York to clean out his apartment, a 24-hour turnaround, and then he's been back with us ever since. So, and I think, it kind of speaks to the challenges of road warriors and super commuters on a micro level, because that's where a lot of the tension is when the person comes home. And so now all across the world, those people are home and you're home together as a couple, whether or not you're a commuter or not, like in a totally different way.
mm,
Um, how duties were divided up has changed, right? Like if a couple, like one person always took the kids to daycare, one person always cooked dinner, now that's all, changed based on their work schedule, based on who's home. And so I think it was a big transition period for a lot of couples. And you'd hear, news stories here and there about the divorce rates are going up because people have to be together. And I'll be curious to kind of see what the data is on that when this all kind of settles down,
mm,
because I feel like sometimes with couples, a lot of times they come to therapy too late, for lack of a better word. Like there's just so
right.
much resentment built up. Um, but I'm wondering if being forced at home together in a different way is shining the light on those cracks in the relationship a little bit sooner. It's hard to ignore them. You're not busy going to sports and work and
Yeah.
all these outside activities. You're home and you have to deal with your relationships. So I'm curious, kind of, that
Mm.
feels like maybe another book. I don't know. It's kind
Yeah,
of
maybe,
percolating, but
well, there's a
yeah,
year's worth of data in there at least, isn't there, that you can
right.
use, and I'm sure there'll be many people willing to tell you how they felt
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
And it is creating its own set of challenges, but it's also
Hmm.
created a lot of opportunities. And
Yeah.
the balance of all of this is positives and negatives are coming out,
Hmm.
and some things are very good. And yeah, I think the what do you miss the most at the moment?
Oh, traveling.
Do you?
Yeah, we always used to take a winter vacation someplace warm, and that's really
Right.
hard. I miss going out to fun, nice dinners. I mean, that we have a sign in our house that says "Eat well and travel often." That's kind of our family motto. Like we don't spend money on things that maybe other people do, but we spend money on vacations and nice, fun
Yeah.
restaurants. They didn't have to be expensive, but just like creative and different and
Yeah.
kind of foodie sort of things. Even our kids like to do that too. So that's been hard. We lost 2 pets and we lost one in January of last year and then one in December of this year. And so that's been really hard.
Yeah.
But like you said, the silver lining to the one we lost recently is like we were all home with him for 9 months straight. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, but yeah, I miss the traveling a lot.
Well,
Live music. I love going to live music concerts. So I
mm,
could go on and on, but
yeah.
yeah, that's a few that are off the top of my head.
So what have you replaced it with? What's the replacement? What have you done to sort of recover some of those challenges, I guess?
Nothing is really replaced that has been as satisfying as any of those, but
No.
it's kind of that whole coming internally, right? I
Yeah.
spent 2 solid days with my mom cleaning out closets and just stuff that just kept getting shoved away. And
Mhm.
so the clutter being gone feels nice.
Yep.
We've had some home projects that we were able to do because we weren't traveling. So just
Yeah.
kind of a shifting of our focus. The big thing I would say actually is Minnesota is home, obviously, to a lot of lakes is kind of what it's known for, but there's amazing state parks and rivers and all that kind of stuff. And so we as a family did a lot of hiking this
Yep.
summer and fall, which we never had time to do because my husband was always traveling. So those weekends were compressed so tightly that it didn't feel like we had the luxury of spending a whole day wandering on different town and up in the wilderness. So that's been really fun to kind of check out our own state a little bit more.
There you go. Well,
Yeah.
interesting, isn't it? Yeah, things that
Yeah.
are right under your nose that you're on your
Right,
doorstep.
exactly.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot actually of people actually now know things around them. It's
Yeah.
bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. Forced staycations.
Well, we didn't have a choice, right?
No,
We
right?
were camping out in my office for a bit in the summer last year. It was great.
Yeah.
It was just nice to be out and doing something different, and that variety is so important. And so you're balancing work, your husband's working as well still at the moment,
Yep.
and the children are doing their education from home, or are they
Yep.
able to go to school at the
No,
moment?
we chose the full online option just because
Okay.
of I was worried it would be too chaotic with in and out. And
Yeah.
then, there's just some health challenges we were considered higher risk. So we're like,
Yeah.
let's just play it safe and do that full distance.
Yeah.
So that had a pretty steep learning curve, but it was the right choice. And the teachers have been great. And
Good.
we're looking at it as resilience building, right?
It's an experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
They
young
will
people.
remember.
Oh my gosh, I don't think they'll ever forget, and I don't think
No.
we'll let them forget, and I don't think the news will let us forget this either.
Yeah.
No, it's
But it is a
interesting.
challenge because, you see lots of message boards and there's obviously lots of emotions and feelings around it from parents and kids and teachers and staff. And I just really try to make sure what I'm saying or my attitude towards it tries to focus on the positive,
Yeah.
right? It's really easy to start blaming and getting upset and the things, anxiety, if you want to boil it down, it's about lack of control and uncertainty. So, that's what we've had for the last year, right? On steroids.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
feel
going to
like
go.
the more we can,
I'm not going to go
you what?
political. I'm not going to go political.
No,
Maybe
no, no, not
maybe
political. But I mean, just
4
like
years.
if you think about like what
Yeah.
triggers anxiety,
Mm.
lack of certainty and lack of control, and like everything's
Yeah.
out of our control right now.
Yeah.
It feels like sometimes. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is, and that's exactly the challenge that we've all faced with COVID. Is this nobody knows, do they? We really don't, and that's
No.
the thing. And we keep hearing positive. What I find frustrating, I don't know if you get the same in the US, is we get positive news, but then there's lots of negative. We might get one thing. Oh, there's a vaccine.
Like, what's the positive news?
Well, the vaccine was a positive. That
Oh, yeah.
I felt a positive surge at that point. And then the
Yes.
next day it was like, but it's not going to be ready, and we
But
won't
nobody
get it
can
for
have
another
it,
3
yeah.
years. And the list of people has to, we'll start with the A's if they're over 99, and
Yeah.
and it's, and I think that was then the reality, isn't it? It's sort of
Yeah.
we throw in these little anxiety busters, which
Yep.
help,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden we put on a load of other stuff, and
Yeah.
and I'm still, I get frustrated by hearing how many people are dying, not how many people are recovering, and
Yeah.
it's that sort of challenge. And I know we need to know that, and that's not sort of undermining it, but are you seeing similar stuff? You've obviously got a change that's happened recently as well. How does that impact the mental health? Are you able to say anything about that?
Impacted my mental health quite well, but
Okay, no, but that's fine. It's your
yeah,
perspective.
I think really, yeah, it was a huge, again, not getting too political, but
No.
it's been a really stressful
Mm.
year on that lens too, politically, like a lot of uncertainty, a lot of divisiveness, a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety and hate about like what's going to happen. Again, out of your control, the unknown, all that stuff. So I feel like there's been, at least around in my world, a big collective sigh of relief of like, oh, maybe things will change now
Right.
a little bit for the positive. Maybe somebody's kind of taking control and it'll feel less chaotic day to day and week to week and hour to hour. So yes, definitely. And then, I mean, I haven't heard it too much with my clients, but the stress of family members with differing political views or even different views around COVID.
Yep.
We're not going to wear a mask. We're only going to see people who wear a mask. Like, so that was causing a lot of stress and anxiety and depression and loss and grief and all those sorts of things with people too. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to stay hopeful. And we live in Minnesota. There's obviously the Mayo Clinic, world renowned center. The University of Minnesota is a huge medical facility. So I feel like that's a real positive for us. I'm hoping we'll like kind of have the momentum and the expertise to kind of get things rolling here really soon.
Yeah. Well, fingers crossed. I really hope
Fingers
so.
crossed.
Yeah, I really hope so for everybody and for everybody involved in all of this. We want to get back to some form of the new world, whatever that's going to look like when it happens, aren't we? And yeah, fascinating stuff. We are
Yeah.
coming towards the end of this, and this is sort of so many things and avenues
fast.
we could. Yeah, it really is. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to sort of outline.
Yeah, I do have a last thought. If
definitely, I love the Jerry Springer piece. The last thoughts.
No, it's not that exciting, but I just wanted to mention, because I don't know that the general world thinks about it, but there is, this very real burnout among therapists too.
Right.
I don't have the caseload that some people do, but there's a lot of fatigue and a lot of stress. A lot of people like see rumblings of like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I may want to quit my, close my practice down, whatever. And part of it is the intensity of it. Part of it is the workload. People are seeing 20, 30 clients a week. But the problem, I think, the biggest challenge is that normally when you're in a session with a client, they may be talking about something that happened in their childhood or their stressors at work, whatever. Well, right now, a lot of it is about the political climate and COVID, and there's no space between the issue that they're dealing with and you. And so that after a while is extremely draining. So, I mean, you have to really be on the top of your game with self-care, but I think we unfortunately are risking losing a lot of therapists if they're not getting the support that they need or finding ways to take care of themselves. So I hope that that's not the case, but just like doctors and nurses and everybody on the front lines, therapists are struggling too.
Yeah. There's and this is the mental health impact. This is the reality of the past the COVID physical impact. There is a mental impact, and it keeps getting talked about, but I don't feel that it's really being taken properly at the moment. And that's something we all need to improve. We all need to talk so we can have that ability.
Exactly.
So I do have one final question for you.
Yes.
Actually, just on that.
Okay.
So what's your self-care? What do you do to look after you? How do you take
sleep is a big one for me. It's like if I'm not sleeping well for a couple nights in a row, I will sleep in a different room just to make sure it's super quiet and dark and not getting interrupted.
Yep.
Yoga is a big one for me. I love my yoga teacher, and I was so sad when they shut the gyms down, but she has moved everything online. And so I have access to her classes whenever I want, which is amazing. Like just amazing. And then reading, I love to read. I've noticed I have a little bit harder time focusing of late, but those are kind of my top three. Walks, trying to get outside as much as possible. We've been blessed with an amazingly mild winter, which unless you've lived through one of them here, you don't really understand what that means, but that has been so helpful to be able to be outside and have a bit warm and sunny and walking around. So those are my top ones. Yeah.
Well, keep doing them. Keep enjoying everything. Listen, Megan, I'm so pleased that you agreed to take part in this with me. I'm so happy to have the chance to sit down and chat with you about your life and the things that you've been doing and the work that you do and the amazing stuff that you're doing every day. So many avenues we could have gone down as well with these conversations. We'll keep talking anyway, as we always do. And yeah, just want to say a huge thank you to you for doing this.
Well, thank you for doing this. And I'm excited to see the rest of them.
9
down. How many more to go?
Whoa. Yeah. We don't talk about that, right? That's we don't talk about how many to go until it gets single digits. But this has been great. For anybody that's listening, as I always say, if you do need to reach out and talk to anybody, please make sure you do. Know that there is always somebody available, and that might not need to be a therapist. That could be just a
be anybody.
volunteer. Yeah, it could be anybody, couldn't it? And reach out to me if you want to chat. I'm sure, Megan, if anybody wants to catch up or introduce themselves, please feel
Yeah.
free to do so. We're all accessible. That's the beauty of these things.
Yep.
I'm
We're
doing it
everywhere.
with people that are perfectly accessible to everybody. So please do know there's somebody to talk to. In the UK, we've got the Samaritans on 116123 for anybody that's listening in the UK. And there are organizations all over the world who have listening support volunteers.
Yeah. Lots of 24-hour crisis lines and text lines, and
Yeah,
they're there.
they are, and they're there to be used.
Mhm.
They're not there just for marketing purposes. They're there
No.
absolutely with people sat behind them wanting to listen to your challenges. So thank you, Megan. It's
Thank
been
you.
lovely to see you. I wish you
Yes.
all the very best with everything, and we'll catch you soon.
Yes, sounds good. Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot.